some reason, I'm looking through the San Jose Mercury in the just random stuff section for sale. And I see world's first video game, computer space. No price, just call. I'm like, wow, I'm pretty interested in this. So I called the guy. I said, so you got a computer space? Yeah. He goes, yeah. First game ever. Okay, great. What color is it? And he goes, well, what color do you want? I'm like, wow, this is getting very interesting, because who has a whole bunch of computer spaces, and who would know that they came in all these different colors? He goes, I got a yellow, a solid blue, metal flake blue, and metal flake red. And he goes, a whole bunch of other games too. Okay, great. Want to come up and see them. These were in a Quonset hut on a sunflower seed farm off of Highway 80 in Dixon, California, halfway between, the Bay Area and Sacramento. And these things hadn't been moved in, probably since 1975. And so I got in touch with Nolan and showed him the pictures and scratched his head, and then like a light bulb went off in his head. He goes, these were Ted Dabney's. These were Ted Dabney's units. This was his route. When he left, he took a route that we had, and he goes, this yellow one's the first one. He goes, I know it. That yellow one is the very first one. I kept the first one, which is a beautiful yellow computer space, and I kept Pong number 46, and we got the rest of them running and working as good as we could. We got it all for $5,000. I don't regret the purchase one bit. Not for a minute.
Well, I'd say 30 years to pretty much the present. The arcades have been relegated to the back rooms and the side streets, and generally been an unsavory type of place. What we want to do is bring the amusement game to age. If we can give it a new zip and a pizzazz, it's going to be financially successful, as well as, I think, a very serious part in the leisure time activity of the American people.
The marriage of traditional pinball machines and computer technology has resulted in the birth of a new breed of amusement games. And Nolan Bushnell is the man handing out the cigars. Bushnell has developed two such games, Computer Space and Pong, and believes that they and others like them will move the pinball industry out of America's bus stations and bowling alleys and into the space age. In 1971, Bushnell invented Computer Space, but sold production rights to Nutting Associates of Mountain View, California, for royalties based on the number of games sold. It proved a good deal for both parties. Sales already exceed 1,500 machines. Computer Space, like Pong, sells for around $1,000 and is played on the screen of a standard television set, which has been programmed to display the desired game. In Computer Space, the player controls a rocket ship, which is trying to shoot down enemy flying saucers while avoiding their missiles. If the player scores more hits than the enemy saucers, he gets one free play. By the time Bushnell invented Pong in 1972, he was able to form his own company, Syzygy Corporation in Santa Clara, California, to produce the game. He has already sold over 1,000 machines and expects to sell 10,000 in the United States by the end of the year. Pong, as the name might indicate, is a game of video ping pong. The two players turn dials which control their electronic paddles and volley with an equally electronic ball. The first player to score 15 points wins. While Bushnell did design and program both his games, the technology he uses dates back to the late 1950s. Thanks to research by the Defense Department in the wake of Sputnik, Bushnell is now able to act out his dream of a nation inhabited by thousands of Pong and Computer Space games.
The government spent millions of dollars on this technology, And as a result, now it's cheap enough that we can put it into a game and sell it for 25 cents for a few minutes and make $1 out of it. It's something that the research and development really was done many years ago, and now it's cheap enough that with PC boards and integrated circuits, we can use that technology to our advantage.
The basic electronic unit of Bushnell's games is the integrated circuit. Each of these small chips is capable of storing large amounts of information. The program for a game is determined by specific combinations of these units to form a PC, or printed circuit board. The printed circuit board then tells the TV screen what to do. A single printed circuit board is all that is required to operate Pong, whereas 15 years ago it would have taken enough tubes and wiring to fill an average house. Bushnell first saw the commercial potential of video games in a game called Space War, which has been played at computer centers around the country for several years.
We used to play Space War a lot at the AI project at Stanford, which is a big computer complex. And one day it just hit, this is a lot of fun. You ought to be able to package it and sell it for a price. And, one thing leads to another, and pretty soon, from doodling on a scratch pad, you're actually working out some basic block diagrams, and from there you think, boy, it's going to work.
No portable football game.
Cuddles, we used to play those portable football games like all day long. The ones where you just had to get the dot from one side of the screen to the other.
Yep. They also had a 4-player rollerball one at the arcades. Tabletop. This game sucks. I have it on my 1-up. Such a poor choice.
You can hear those missile command sounds in it.
I played a ton of Tron as a kid. Once I got my 1-up, I realized a 1-up was poor quality. If it were good quality, I would probably bought a Tron machine at the time. This game looks better than Argar.
Yeah, Black Widow's amazing. Great twin stick shooter. Oh. This was actually a conversion kit for a less popular Atari game.
Do you still keep your 1-ups powered on?
They're plugged in. I mean, I just don't play them too much. I really only play my iArcade. Look at this collection, Cuddles. I started with Aka R because that was like one of the first arcade game machines that they released, but or they actually never put it out. See, it was a prototype. See, they chose not to manufacture the game. And then on Black Widow, see, it was a conversion kit for Gravatar. Because Gravatar, I don't like that game. Right now I'm checking out these are the arcade games,
Gravatar is hard.
but then I'll get into some of the consoles like 2600, some 7800. I'll check out a lot.
Food fight is good. I wish I had food fight on my 1-up instead of Argar.
They put Argar on the 1-up? I didn't know that. Which one has that? Is that on your Tempest?
Yep, the Atari.
Really? I didn't even know. I never knew that they had it.
The Tempest machine. Yes.
I mean, I guess it's cool that it's on there since it was a prototype game. It's kind of cool to have it. I don't think it's terrible. Oh, man. Look, you got the dip switch settings. This is Gravatar.
It's the game that comes up when you turn the machine on. Terrible choice by 1-up.
I love this game, Liberator. I have this one.
Would release a PCB for Atari 1-up owners and put some breakout games on there.
I have this one on my 12-in-1. Really good game. On there, you play it with the trackball. This is actually a Missile Command sequel. Oh, I'm already dead. I love Lunar Lander. I have this one on my 12-in-1. That was always one of my favorites in the arcade. Major Havoc's great. I have that on the 12-in-1. Maze Invaders. I have Millipede. Of course, Missile Command. Quantum, like you gotta make circles around the enemies. Alright, Space Duel was a Asteroids clone. Yeah, that's the one with the vector. Warlords is awesome. So here we got, now we're getting into 2600, when the arcade first came to the home. Obviously Adventure is great. So I can click on the cartridge, read a little bit about it. You got different modes, color and black and white. Whoa. This game blew me away as a kid. Oh, shit. Look, you can see the original instruction manual. Whatever this is, I have to unlock it. I totally forgot what you're supposed to do once you collect your stuff. Well, I got the instruction manual.
The truth is one-player games pretty much were average to horrible up until maybe the 1990s. "95% of my playtime on my Genesis was Madden and Cyberball. And of course Joe Montana football." Real sports talk. Two-player games. One-player games were only good at the arcades. Oh yeah, and Zaxxon.
Yeah, Zaxxon was amazing. Oh, how'd I get hit?
Battlefield Bod Company 2 changed gaming for me. That brought gaming to a whole new level. I used to go to the arcade with my girlfriends every Friday night. I remember laser tag. Laser tag and go-karts.
Yeah, we used to go roller skating. What do you think about this game, Cuddles? I think this one still holds up.
This game doesn't hold up at all.
Cuddles hates everything. $5,200.
We're talking 50 years old. I had a 7800.
Oh, they even got some Jaguar games on here.
Nobody had a Jaguar.
I know. It's like I remember when they came out and I saw it in the store. It was like the one console I passed up on, and I used to buy everything. The only thing I really, if I was going to get it, I wanted it for the
Or a
Alien
Neo
game.
Geo.
I knew someone that had a Neo Geo.
I played almost every Genesis game. Madden 93 was a vibe back in the day though. Crew Ball was a great pinball game.
I like this. Never played this before.
Trip Hawkins turned gaming around. He was a pioneer. He started Electronic Arts. I also had a 3D. What a waste of money.
I don't think I ever had a 3DO. That's a cool little game right there. So for the 7800, we have Asteroids, Basketball, Centipede, Dark Chambers, Fatal Run. Ninja Golf is supposed to be good.
The racing game for the 7800.
Isn't that crazy, Cuddles? When it launched at $199, that's equivalent to about $950 today.
On the simplest level, what the VCS, the Atari 2600, what that is, it's a combination of plastic and computer chips that enables you to play a video game, an interactive video game on your home television, which is something that never really happened before.
If you're making an arcade game, it begins as a hardware project. If you need something more in the hardware, just put it in the hardware and you can use it in your game. The Atari 2600, we didn't have that luxury. The game was already in Grandma's house. It was already hooked up to her TV. And all we could do is make a different cartridge, sell that to the person, he plugs it in.
It was the thing that made video games a worldwide phenomenon. And all it is it's a box that enables you to play an interactive game on your TV. But on a cultural level, that's such a huge thing to do, because there were two things that achieved that changed the world, literally changed the world. One is it put computers in homes. At a time where IBM only had about 10,000 PCs sold altogether, Atari had millions of units installed, and every one of those was a computer in the home. The other thing it did was it created an interactive medium with television, which was always a passive medium. Before video games, people were just zombies sitting on the couch watching TV. But video games turned people into zombies jumping up and down on the couch yelling at the TV. And that was a very different experience. And I think that was huge in terms of taking people from a passive state to an active state. And we're still learning the implications of that.
Back then Miami was a desolate retirement community. I actually prefer old Miami.
The entire reason that Atari created the Atari 2600 home console was to put their arcade hits into the home. If we can sell home versions of our arcade hit games into the home, we can sell millions of them instead of just take quarters from the thousands of people who go to arcades. And so the hardware was designed to make it possible to play Tank and Pong. That's about all that they did in the hardware.
So the distinction is this. CoinUp gets to use more expensive hardware. They get to use tons and tons of hardware, and they get to refresh their hardware all the time.
I had played an Outlaw-like game in the arcade. I think it was Midway. And you know, I was just told to make a game, so I said, well, here's an idea, two guys shooting at each other. And so I made that game. My goal is to try to make it like the arcade game, so I could look at the arcade game and say, this is what it has to do. So there really wasn't any need for me to have communication with the arcade guys. I'm particularly proud of the Atari 2600 Canyon Bomber because it also has the Atari arcade game Depth Charge in it. So it turns out that in a 2K byte Atari 2600 cartridge, I simulated both Canyon Bomber and Depth Charge, which were probably $3,000 arcade game hardware.
When I was young, when I was little, I remember there was this drugstore.
See, Wolf was a vibe.
Comic book rack. They had these abridged versions of great literature. You'd read it, and it was the whole story of Treasure Island. War and Peace, a comic book.
We'll try that one
I'm
next.
glad you experienced it.
That is what was going to happen.
When I did Donkey Kong, I had, not surprisingly, absolutely no contact with Nintendo. Coleco was able to get me a machine. So I had a machine that I could play and look at, and I had already played the game. And like
With the
David
periscope.
said, with Canyon Bomber, the game is the spec. Frankly, the hardware is
Yeah, it's such a great
so
game.
different in its capabilities that I can't think of
I
any
play it
value
with
I
the
would have had
trackball on my
getting
Legends
in
Ultimate.
touch with anybody at Nintendo. It's like talking to the guy who created the Porsche Carrera about making a bicycle. I mean, it's like there's not a lot there. Not a lot you're going to tell me. Here's this masterpiece and do it on this toaster. You know, and I was young enough and stupid enough to not be intimidated. And I wasn't because I was just a kid. I was like, no big deal.
They should recreate that for the PSVR. See Wolf for the PSVR.
You know what the Atari motto is? Innovative leisure, right? Well, it didn't say innovative arcade games. It didn't say innovative video games. It said innovative leisure. It was broad from day one. I mean, Nolan always had a consumer game in his mind because that's what he hired me to do. And I wound up doing the wrong thing and making a hit coin-op game, right? When I was at Ampex, I learned how to make sync generators, synchronizing, the basic fundamental circuit necessary to get a TV signal, because we had to generate an analog signal. So you do that and you get the ball at one speed and you put paddles up, and it's a very, very boring game. And so I added the speed up and I added the angles off of that, just, to make it playable, interesting. And so it started getting a little interesting. That's cute. And Nolan said, well, it's got to have score. We had a pretty good game, and hey, great. So what are you going to do for sound? I go, sound? I'm already over budget. What am I going to do? Nolan said, well, I want the sound of a roar of a crowd of thousands applauding your win. And Ted said, I want boos and hisses. And I'm thinking, how do I do that? Listen, I got video. I got the goddamn game up. Now you wanted me to do this. I'll be right back. So I pissed around for a day and poked around sounds that already existed in the vertical sync generator and gated them out with the 555 timer. I love it. Years later, the sound is so well thought out, so appropriate. It was like, are you kidding me? It was just, just thrown together in spite of what the boss said. And so that was how Pong came to be.
So everybody's heard the Pong story. Probably everybody's heard the Pong story, but I've heard it many times, and from Al Alcorn himself, who designed Pong. So,
the story I've heard is that they installed one of the first Pong machines in a tavern and let people play it as a test.
Put it out into an arcade and see if it makes money. I mean, that's the market research.
My understanding was Ted built a cabinet, a tabletop, simple cabinet over the weekend. And a coin mech bolted to the side of the cabinet, tabletop type of big thing was sit on a barrel.
Placing a interactive video machine somewhere and having people play it was still a relatively new concept. Nobody knew if it was going to go.
Oh, what is the name of the bar in Palo Alto?
San Jose?
No, it was Andy Caps.
It was Santa Clara?
Sunnyvale.
So we'll put it in Andy Caps. You know, it's a coin-op game, be it fragile and humble. And so we did.
Well, my memory is that he gets a phone call, the game's busted, which of course is the usual thing you get on a support line. It doesn't work. What is it, and in what way does it not work? Well, it doesn't work.
The bar owner or manager at the time kind of yelled at them and like accused them of their game being shoddy because it had already broken down and it was no longer functioning or working.
And they get a call, you know, later on that night and like, hey, this fucking thing broke, you know. Come and pick up this piece of shit game and get it out of here. You know, this fucking thing broke. You know, I'm not gonna waste my time fixing this crap.
But anyway, the machine, we got the word that it stopped working, and I figured it could be anything, and I'd go out there and take a look at it. And so I went to the machine, and the first thing you do is you want to try to play the game, because the machine was on in a tracked mode, so it was working, but you couldn't start a game. So you open up the coin box to basically flip the micro switch to give yourself a free game, because I'm not going to waste a quarter, you know.
And so they went down to see what's wrong with the machine to fix it, and what they found out was that it wasn't broken. It was just that so many people had played it, they'd filled the coin box with quarters, and it was jammed, and it couldn't take any more.
So many people had played it that it couldn't accept any more money.
The game is broken because it's stuffed so full of quarters.
Completely stuffed with quarters.
And it was a small, I remember it was kind of small, if I remember. It was a small space. It just filled up with the quarters, and it wouldn't take it.
When I opened up the coin mech, you know, all these quarters just gushed out. So, whoa, that's impressive.
It's the equivalent of like crashing a server when you launch a new website and it's so popular. So they crashed the server on Pong.
And one of the other reasons it was also so popular is because you could play it with one hand while you're still holding a pint in your other hand. And that also was one of those things that, you know, eventually many, many years later led to the rise of the fun barcades that we have, you know, and we can enjoy now.
As Al will always say with a little, you know, twinkle in his eye, he goes, "This is a problem I can fix."
Basically, the way it worked was you take the money, the deal you have, and you split the take with the owner of the bar. And so I did that, and I had this sack of quarters, and the next day I come into work and I said, I got the machine fixed, and here's the problem. Goddamn thing's making too much money. And they'll went, really?
But it was one of those great moments where something that supposedly was failing was actually such a huge success that no one could recognize. It was truly the ugly duckling version of technology.
Because remember, Nolan thought, he was like, this is just a placeholder until we get to design the really good game, because who's going to play this stupid shit-ass game?
They went on to produce all of these classic, memorable arcade titles for years that allowed the company to survive and be so much more than a one-hit wonder. So that's my understanding of the history of Pong.
It's a great story if it's true.
When a story is good, you know there's some doubt about it. Like, well, that's too good to be really true. It's probably a boring version of it that's actually true.
You know, it sounds realistic to me. You know, I mean, I've kind of seen that happen in my own. And when you do get a really great game, the coins will just overflow, and you know, it's kind of a cool feeling.
Anyway, that's how that all happened. Yeah. Anyway.
You will hear stories of hot tubs in the lobby and drug use in the office, and I'm here to tell you that none of that happened in my department.
We started smoking pot right in our office. Rob and I were like the premier pot. Sorry, Rob. I and some other person who occasionally shared an office with me for 5 years at Atari, however that frickin' worked, we would just fire up right in the office. It's like, who knows why? It's like, this is like, it's illegal. It's like, it wasn't even a sense of privilege. It was just mindlessness.
I worked in a satellite office. I started in 1977, which was still pretty early. It was only 18 months since the 2600 came out. But there was no hot tub in the lobby of the office that I went to. There was no drug use in Atari, though I don't doubt that it was over where Howard and Todd Fry were working.
Drugs were consumed at Atari by all kinds of people at all levels of management, from the bottom to the top and all over engineering. Not everybody did drugs, but some people did, and some people enjoyed them, and some people abused them, and some people went to the hospital on them. And but by and large, drugs were a relatively nominal factor. Drugs, you know, there was a lot of marijuana, and it would participated a lot in brainstormings. So we had the way of, you know, trying to incorporate drugs into our productivity model.
I went home and I smoked a joint, a little bit of cocaine and a little bit of psilocybin in it. And I was sitting there, it was about half gone when I realized, oh, you could do that. And it's like, I put it out and I went and I wrote a page of notes. And my design for that kernel was exactly what it ended up shipping. It was like, it was a tremendous amount of effort, actually, to get everything organized.
You know, they did have good deliveries of cannabis in the inter-office mail. You know, that was probably the primary use of those yellow manila envelopes. I think it was, you know, Fridays or Monday. I think it was Fridays when you get these really thick envelopes coming through the system. And, you know, and it was weird. It was like there was a guy working there, and his job was he was the weed dealer. You know, that was his sole job at the whole company.
And there was a very straight German VP of hardware down the hallway in the building. I have no idea. He complained to management about the smell of pot smoke in the corridors. So they got him an office in a different building.
I have been asthmatic since I've been 12. I need drugs to breathe. I did not do drugs because drugs to me were something that let you get up in the morning, you know, and breathe. So
PSVR needs to come out with more inexpensive titles.
And I was always a happy guy, so I just didn't feel I needed it. So I never did drugs, but there were a lot there.
I love the indie type of games.
In the fact that every Atari employee was
Miami, you should pick up Ancient Dungeon. I think you'll really enjoy that one.
I mean, there was all kinds of drugs consumed at Atari, but the real drug at Atari,
it's really challenging though, but you'll get a lot of play out of it.
The horror genre is overplayed.
Seeing your game on a shelf.
It's not that it's overplayed, it's just, I mean, the whole horror genre in general, movies and everything, is so popular, and to be able to immerse yourself in it, I mean, people just love it. So, like for me, you can't put out enough horror games. I want to play them all. But I'm definitely going to be playing Ancient Dungeon.
What up, Brooklyn?
Nix, what's up, buddy?
What game is this?
It's Sword Quest reimagined. I'm sure if I figured out the first level, it was gonna all of a sudden like transform into a new version.
The Sword Quest games, I've heard of those. I don't know how to play that. I didn't even jump when it was red.
I remember that game.
Good luck.
I take it he's already played Pitfall?
They don't have Pitfall on this collection. Oh, that's crazy. Man, these old games are nuts.
Blasphemy.
Yeah, none of the Activision stuff is on here.
Avoid the ground.
Wow, this game's terrible. They're trying to play that without a spinner is crazy.
There were so many things near the end of in my early days with Atari that I wished, like everything we felt was underappreciated. Like I bought a Lynx and I was trying to find people to play the Lynx with me, and everyone else had a Game Boy, and I was like, you guys, Todd Slime World, let's do this, let's play Warbirds, come on.
And the Lynx was totally Sam's baby. He loved the notion of the hardware, and Sam, man, he loved the Lynx into the ground, right? Against all odds, he wanted to make it successful. We did the original one that was sort of the original design, and then he was like, no, we got to double down on it and do it and make it better.
Being in the Bay Area, you see these ads, come test video games. So I think I tried out at a few places. Electronic Arts comes to mind. Didn't get the job there, but was lucky enough to kind of get the QA job at Atari. Back in the day, I think it was a lot more fun. People playing 4 Lynx games and then having them all go out of sync and then having to track that down. Like, probably at the 1,000th time that happens, it does get a little old. But I think back in the day, you actually got a lot more input into the games. So a lot of the last Lynx games like Lemmings and some of the early Jaguar games like Cybermorph, the QA department actually got a lot of input into those games from a design perspective. You know what? I think the Lynx was great hardware. I like the fact that it was color. And I think the fact that you could have this like 4-way local multiplayer was great.
20 some years later, here I am buying a Lynx with a RGB output because people are still modding them, and selling them on eBay and stuff, right?
Look at that controller. No wonder I never bought that thing. I remember sitting in the room with Jack, and Jack saying to all of us, let's go back to our roots. Let's do at least one more game system.
The controller is quirky. The industrial design of both the CD and the main unit are quirky. And the fact that, like, I guess somebody used the tooling on the main unit to make some kind of dental device. Like, it just has like this weird, quirky history that I think is also inviting.
One of the most interesting things about the architecture of Jaguar was this notion of having the Motorola 68000, which basically was responsible for booting and housekeeping, and then the Tom and Jerry chips.
I mean, I think at the time, 68000 was still a strong processor, but obviously it was in the Genesis and other things, so you weren't really getting that true 64-bit experience. But I think there's games out there that took advantage.
There's so many features in Jaguar that for a developer like Jeff Minter that did Tempest 2000 for Jaguar was like, wow, give me this.
I would say other than Cybermorph, it did not necessarily feel like that quantum leap that we were promised. It wasn't the flying cars, as they say, that we would have in the future, but you could see the potential, and that's what was really cool. You could see the parts of Cybermorph. You're like, oh, fully 3D world compared to something like maybe a Star Fox, which was on rails.
My perspective is the rule of thirds, where if you want to wind up with one really, really great game, you need to lay down 9 bets, because out of those 9, 1/3 probably will ship. And out of those 3 games, one is going to be a hit, the other will be, and the other probably might be a dinger. There just wasn't enough momentum behind the Jaguar at that time to be able to do that, when Sega and Nintendo were basically already on their 3.5 generation of consoles, at those times.
I mean, if Aliens vs. Predator came out as a launch title, maybe the history of the Atari Jaguar might have been slightly different. I think there are a lot more Jaguar fans today than there were when the system actually came out, and it's cool to see people enjoying the system some 20-odd years later. I believe everybody appreciated the innovative aspect, but on the other hand, the software was late, some of it was a little janky, but I think just saying, time heals all wounds, to go onto the Jaguar forums now and look at the love for the system, honestly, like somebody that worked on it, I can't say that I completely understand it, but I totally appreciate it. I'm like, where were you guys like 20 or 30 years ago? You would have made my life like a heck of a lot better.
I feel the best Atari games ever made have been made in the last 5 years. I think the homebrew scene is incredible. People have figured out, and it's unfair to compare because the original people had like 5 weeks to make, E.T. or whatever. And now people can take, it's like a hobby. You can take as long as you want, and you have access to like special chips and stuff. But still, they're still working. Eventually, making carts that you plug into your original Atari 2600, and they run, and they're super fun.
We saw it evolving, and there was a lot of nostalgia involved for that to happen. We loved this particular game system, and it's a great intellectual challenge.
In 2009, I was given a talk in Philadelphia just talking about the game business and my experience there. And after the talk, somebody came up to me and they said, hey, I just saw this cool book just came out called Racing the Beam. And it's about programming the 2600. And since you mentioned that you worked on the 800, I thought you might be interested in this book. And I'm like, it does sound really interesting.
Back in the old days when I had my Atari 800, I did learn 6502 assembly language, and so I've been messing around and making some of my own Atari games. I'm not ready to make Psychonauts on the Atari yet, but someday I'm going to make Psychonauts on the Atari 2600. Not announcing that yet, but don't tell anyone. But
what is the point of going back to work on one of these old machines anyway? I mean, to me, the point is I want to know what it was like to be, Todd Fryer, and who was, told he has 3 months to write Pac-Man on this terrible machine. And am I a man enough, programmer to be able to do that?
Pac-Man was actually technically quite solid.
It's fun to program for the 2600 because it's unique. It's, 128 bytes. Not K, but like bytes of memory. It's so limited that it helps you edit, and so you can't do everything. You can't imagine an experience and then implement it on the Atari. You have to go the other way around. Like, how many blocks can I move on the screen? Like, how can I turn that into a fun game?
It was very, very hard to squeeze a 128 level game with a, title screen and a boss encounter and all that into 4K of ROM, because that's one of the limitations on the 2600. If you're going to live within the original constraints. And so I learned a ton about the 2600 along the way. I had a lot of fun. It was a lot of hard work, and I'm proud of the way it turned out.
I think of the homebrew as the hobbyist who wants to see if he can do it, and he makes a game and he makes a few for friends. That has evolved into some actual publishers making Atari 2600 games that are out there.
But there was a guy came on there the other day, and he's like, I just want to say this is the most supportive technical community I have ever been part of. it is an amazing community and very welcoming to new people. So I would encourage people to do that.
Yeah, it's way more improved on the 800. Big difference.